Hey, what's up, guys? I was just doing a little bit of research, and you know, the the Finns have an interesting history where we're not part of the Germanic, sort of the old ancient Germanic culture, right? I forget where all these buttons are. I guess I can't just circle, but this is sort of your Germanic area. Right, and this is Swedish, Norwegian, German, French, English, whatever. And the cultures are somewhat different, but when it comes to Finland and the rest of the Viking, there was actually a lot of relationships going on. And the Finns are known to, and Hungarians and these people, they come from a region around here mainly. And there's a lot of like Mongolian blood, for example, and a lot of this. I don't even know how you. I don't remember the term for it, but I'm sure a lot of you watchers know what I'm talking about. But it's interesting because we have this like sort of longboat sailing culture that comes from here. And mind you, remember that during the Viking Age, throughout most of it, it was actually much warmer than it is today. There was a lot less ice on Greenland, for example. So a much more habitable place here, much more comfortable to live. Lots of wood, lots of trees. You could easily have a lot of things, a lot of farmland, and a lot of animals grazing. And when you and so this area here is where a lot of the Finns came from. A lot of the Finnish Vikings came from, and it's basically kind of this entire region here and there. And what I was so and I only sort of looked into this today, and I decided to open up Google Earth and kind of look down into here. And this place is the river systems are more intense than the Amazon. I mean, there are you see, there's river systems all over the place. Like, no joke, literally all over the place. And you have all these basins here. And look, even more of these river basins. So, whoever came from here had a really, really strong boating culture. You had to, because you could just move around everywhere you wanted to on boats. And this is pretty ancient. Now, a lot of this is formed at the end of the last ice age, when we had a really sort of, you could say, catastrophic melting of the poles. And the width of this was the initial outflow of water beneath the ice. So this was the river. And as the ice melted, you see, you create all these little potholes. It gets smaller and smaller. Then you're left with all these rivers. And then, as thousands of years go by, these rivers form all these beautiful patterns here. See, because the soil is very soft. And what happens is the water on the outside of the river, the water, for example, here, it's faster than it is here. So it's eroding the outer side faster than it's eroding here. So what happens is you'll have this branch here and this branch here. They erode to the point where they connect, and then they cut off, and they create like a semicircles like this. And that's why you see all these. Look here. Here are some great examples of this, where these two are about to meet, right? And when that happens, they cut off and they create these straight. It becomes straight again, the river, just like this. And you can see here how it's happened many, many, many times. So the soil is very soft and the water is moving relatively quickly, and you're left with all these uh, really awesome, extremely beautiful features in the soil. And the thing is, like, this is inside a canyon that was carved. This width here, that's the canyon, the size of the canyon that was carved at the end of the Ice Age. So, anyway, what I'm getting at here is this region where these Finnish Vikings came from. It's just like really magical in many ways. And look at this, just uh, rivers that flow all over the place. So, you know, definitely you would have had boats um, traveling all over. It would just be so much easier. You could just grab a boat and set sail and go upstream or downstream. I don't know exactly how you would go about doing it, but if you know if you had a large boat with 20, 30 guys on board rowing, I mean, you'd be clearing all this pretty quick. And this is, all over the place. Look at this river here. And like it's all over the place. It's just super, super, super fascinating. And this is, a bulk of the ice cap was up here during the Ice Age, so before 12,600 years ago. But the main thing that I wanted to point out today, which I thought was just freaking crazy, is I don't remember now if it was this river or this river. I think it was this river. Now, there is, like, you see how far away Mongolia is? Actually, I'm going to put the borders and places here. This is Mongolia, right? And there's blood from this region. There's a lot of blood from this region, which is very, very far away from Finland and this area of Russia here. And, people have often wondered about migrational patterns and how they got to Finland. And, well, I mean, I'm sure somebody has figured it out before. I'm not the first one, but you can imagine. So, um, if you follow, I think it's just from here. You see this river system, right? You can just follow this river all the way. You see? I'm gonna remove the borders and labels just quick. You can follow it all the way. It's pretty thick too. This ain't no small river. And you can see if we zoom down, the soil is much harder here. It's much denser, the soil, because we're not seeing as much intense variation. So it's see, we're seeing similar erosional features as up further north, but you follow this river. Come on, load. All the way up here. And then you go from here and you can sail to Finland. So you can actually almost literally grab a boat from here. And mind you, the world's most advanced nuclear weapons are actually made like right here. The Belgorod submarines and the super torpedoes, the what are they called? What were they called? The Status 6 torpedoes, so like 200 megaton yield, which, if you're in Finland, you don't really stand a chance. Just one of those submarines is enough to annihilate the whole of Finland. You wouldn't have to do much. But anyway, so, yeah, if you're a Viking, or even in the modern day, and you're doing trade or you got relatives across the world, I mean, you just grab a boat from here, you follow the coastline all the way here, you go and say hello to all your buddies, and remember, it's much warmer in that period of time. You go up here, and I guess you would have to pay a toll. There would be some Viking villages here, I mean, I don't know, but I would bet, and this would make sense, that you would probably find some ancient, like, pseudo-Viking trading settlements here, where you'd have boats coming in and out. So you'd take your boat, you go down here, and then you just sail, and you continue sailing. And I bet you there's going to be villages on the way. There's going to be all sorts of other trading settlements, and you just keep going and keep going. And look, there's other river systems. You see this one, for example, that leads off this main highway, and it goes far out, man. You see? It goes all the way out here. So, pretty impressive type of like highway. Oops, I lost my way now. Yeah, here. And there's another one. And you see how many there are, and you just keep going, keep going. You have to know where you're going, I guess. But in this particular case, as long as you just stick to the fat river, you're Gucci, you know? Look at that. Isn't that ridiculous? You can sail all the way from Finland to goddamn Mongolia, and then you'll end up in this ocean here, this inland ocean or super lake, and that's it. That's the end of the road. Isn't that crazy? Like, you can sail with a Viking longship basically from Finland all the way to Mongolia. And Mongolia is like as inland as it get. They don't have a sea connecting to them, you know? So you can go from here all the way there, here, and then all the way here. It would probably take a really long time, but from our modern perspective, but you know, even if you think about like kind of reasonable distances, like even if you want to get to Turkey, which is, if I remember correctly here, yeah, from Finland, you can walk there actually in just like a couple months. Like if you wanted to walk from Helsinki all the way down to Istanbul, you can actually get there pretty quick. Like if you've got horses, it's not all the, I mean, yeah, it's gonna take a while, but you know, this area here, the land is the most arable land in the world. This is the richest soil in Ukraine. So you would have, you know, no problems getting to Istanbul. I mean, you know, just it's just astonishing to think. I never thought about it until today when I was doing this sort of research where the Finnish Vikings came from, which is this region, but it also happens to be connected all the way by water through river systems all the way out here. And there are vast and complex networks of water systems that stretch out all over this entire region. We might have we might not realize the true extent of how extreme whatever culture was living here actually was, and their capabilities, and how much it actually influenced uh, the generation of the Viking culture and the trade and the global. Because you know, like, yeah, it's just raising questions. I don't really know enough about archaeology or history, but I like to look at it from the Google Earth perspective. I like to think about it in terms of geology, because you know it's like I kind of see it through my own eyes. Like, what would be comfortable for me to do? Would I rather walk or take a boat? And if I can take a boat, how much further can I go? You know, because you're gonna get bored of walking. You might get tired. You know, if something happens to you, it's not so easy. With a boat, right? Not even that large of a boat. You can have 20, 30, 40 guys just chilling, you know, rowing, hanging out, drinking beer. I mean, you could, you could row with 20, 30 guys, you know, on a Viking launch ship, and you can be completely fucking wasted the whole way to Mongolia. Like, who gives a shit, right? Like, you could just be completely plastered and still make it there. You just need one or two guys who've been there before, and you're fine. And like, the trip will go by like a breeze, but like, you can't really walk from Finland, say, to Istanbul completely plastered off your ass. That's like way too dangerous. So you'd have to be kind of, and you wouldn't have enough, you wouldn't have anywhere to hold all that gear. I mean, you would need a horse and a carriage, and you'd have to be careful what you take. When you got a boat, you can be a lot more liberal with the kind of stuff you bring with you. You can bring all sorts of stuff, weapons, heavy equipment, tools. There's a lot of stuff you can bring with you on a boat. So you kind of like, you know, having these river systems tells you that, yeah, you could have actually, you know, boated this. And we know that the longboats that the Vikings used could go through extremely shallow water and very deep water. They were very versatile boats. One of the main reasons why the Vikings didn't actually end up surviving for very long was because the Brits figured out that they could just build much taller boats. See, the longboats that the Vikings were making were just destroying the British fleets. until the British fleets actually figured out how to build frigates and super tall boats, and that was sort of the dawn of British true naval power of the British Empire, and everybody copied. Everybody started building these super tall, multi-story frigates, brigantines, and those kind of things, and that was a result of military like warfare and technological development to compete against these Viking longboats that were just so effective and so versatile. But as soon as the Brits started building taller boats, the Vikings couldn't compete, and the Vikings didn't end up not building uh, boats that could compete against the develop because you could just shoot them from you couldn't board them anymore. The Vikings couldn't board the ships, and the ships could, you could shoot down. It's much more difficult to attack a boat that's 2 stories taller than yours, and you're basically at the water line. But the problem with those boats is you could never traverse this type of terrain. Right, the Viking longboats are kind of like your off-road, off-water, your off-road version of your boats. And if you have any sort of, if there's like a point somewhere here where it's too shallow or too narrow, a Viking longboat, you can sort of like kind of dismantle it. You can have your guys drag it. You can empty it out and pull it across. If you need to, say you have like two water, say you have two river systems, you could always dismantle it, carry cross country, rebuild it there, and then go in the opposite direction or whatever. Like there's things you can do like that with the Viking longboats you can't do with like frigates. But yeah, I think this is really interesting that there are like this is like the Amazon, the river. It's very similar in structure and in composition and how it's formed, except that it wasn't formed by the melting of the ice caps. It was formed in I don't know, other way. I don't know how it was formed. But yeah, I mean, isn't that crazy? I don't know what the name of this river, lake, inland sea is because it's all in Cyrillic, and I don't really know how to activate the English. Oh, Lake Baikal. Well, that's interesting. I'm gonna quickly search something here. Lake Baikal Viking archaeology. Let's see what we find. Ah, so now I know which one Lake Baikal is. Let's see. Yeah, they don't really. The Baikal Archaeology Project, an international team of scholars investigating Middle Holocene, about 9,000 to 3,000 years before present, hunter-gatherers of the Lake Baikal region of Siberia project. Hmm. Yeah, these guys are investigating like really long time ago. These are like Bronze Age people. But then Bronze Age, yeah. Bronze Age tools. Super interesting. I don't find any evidence here that there's actually Viking artifacts there. But then all the research that I can find tells us that like Lake Baikal here was like a Bronze Age thing, and then after that there doesn't seem to be much archaeology. Let's see, let's see. Oh, it's the biggest freshwater reservoir in the world. You can actually drink this water. Anyway, I'm gonna look into this another time because I wouldn't be surprised if we found Viking or pre-Viking um, artifacts and trade goods sort of, within 2, 3, 4,000 years of the Vikings arriving in Scandinavia and Finland, I wouldn't be surprised if we found a lot of evidence for movement between here and there. Anyway, I thought that was super interesting, that we can actually that there's maybe an explanation as to how the Finnish genes, the our genetic how our genetic structure seems to resemble people from Mongolia and the Sami people, and it might be because they actually literally sailed all the way from Lake Baikal to northern Scandinavia and then made their way down. How cool is that? Well, that's it for today, guys. Again, this is not like very scientific. This is more like an observation that I thought was really cool. I mean, really, all I'm pointing out here today is that there's a river that exists from where Finnish Vikings came from that connects that area to basically the Lake Baikal north of Mongolia, and the genetic is the correct word epistemology? The genetic history here matches the theory, so the theory matches the geology here quite well. That's all I'm pointing out. I'm not pointing out that anything else, because I'm not very scientific person in that sense that I have like any I do actually have training in science, and I'm training in engineering, and I've been in and I've done a lot of, like, I've practiced in laboratories and stuff. So but anyway, that's not the point. It's more like I'm just showing something interesting that piqued my curiosity today, and I only noticed it because I was trying to look at what the geology looks like where the Proto-Finnish Vikings came from, and I zoomed in, and it just looks like an incredible, magical, like just ridiculous wonderland. I mean, look at this. Isn't that insane? All these rivers and all this is like, it's just crazy. It must be difficult to live here. You'd need like some serious equipment. And I don't even know if this is a town. This looks like an industrial zone. This could be like a nuclear power plant. Oil and gas condensate field. Gas chemical complex. Yeah, there's actually probably a lot of natural gas here. Interesting. But anyway, this looks more like a town. I don't know. Yeah, there's little supermarkets there. But gas filling. This is another industrial site. Crazy. Here's another one of those rivers. Wow. Anyway, so that's all I had for today. And I like to make people curious. And I think this is definitely one of those super curious things that allows us to connect the dots. Like if you think about it historically, over the last 10, 12,000 years, we had, Mongolians, Bronze Age people living here, and they migrated. They must have migrated with boats whenever boats were invented or whatever, and they slowly made their way up these rivers up here. Then during the sort of Viking era, plus minus 1,000, yeah, minus, 1,000 years before that or something. I don't remember. Maybe it's 500. There was a warm period, and it allowed them to live and move and stay up here. And as that warm period stayed, these people migrated here to Finland. And meanwhile, while that was going on, um, we had the Germanic people basically here, the European Germanic people and European Germanic Vikings here, and they made their way to what is now basically a massive pile of ice, but it was back then very green, Greenland and Canada. So pretty interesting how like all of this now and this is sort of all connected now in a timeline in a pretty decent way. I'm sure that there's some historians out there or geologists or whatever archaeologists who just like laugh at all this. But I thought it would just be interesting to bring up because, the path of least resistance is basically, you and your best friends drunk as fuck on a boat going cross country and not giving a shit instead of, walking for no reason in a random direction. And I think, a bunch of Bronze Age guys, they got fucking bored. They got on a boat that one of their friends made and they just basically partied all the way up north looking for, women, new places to settle, and eventually made their way here. And then when they noticed that the Swedish women were super gorgeous, they were like, you know what, guys? I think we're gonna stay right here. And they found what they were looking for, and they decided to settle down. And that's where now we have the Finnish population. So I'll see you guys later. I thought that was a really interesting video.